As India heads towards its centenary year of independence, it is time for us to reflect on the milestones of the past and also chart out a roadmap for where we wish to be. The government has asked individual ministries to draw up an action plan for change with the emphasis on improving the ease of living, the ease of doing business, education, healthcare, climate action and more. While the government readies its plans, CNBC-TV18 in association with IIM Kozhikode has launched a leadership series to engage in a meaningful dialogue to map out the key drivers for our social and economic growth and how best to capture the opportunities and potential. To capture our aspirations as a nation and draw up a charter of change that will shape the idea of India in 2047. Now, 5 megatrends could shape India of 2047. These are digital adoption, artificial intelligence, new energy, the metaverse, and a skilled talent pool. The use of immersive technology could rejig the world order, with the applications ranging from agriculture, commerce, decentralized finance to medical devices and digital governance. But to become a global tech hub, India needs to innovate a lot more. In fact, the Global Innovation Index report for 2021 points that India excels in bringing innovation to the market, but not in driving innovation. Having said that, over the last few years, Indian startups have been able to bridge the digital gap with innovative technologies like AI, IoT, cloud, space tech, robotics, blockchain, and more. These enterprises are working to solve large problems that are India-specific as well as creating models for the world. Well, the future is digital and it depends on how digitally connected 1.3 billion Indians are going to be over the next few decades. So as we aspire to leapfrog our developed peers to become a hub for innovation and cutting-edge technology, here are some of the key questions we need to answer. Can Indian companies build technological resilience to be disruptors rather than being disrupted? Can India bridge the skill gap to create a workforce ready for the technologies of the future? And can India's policymakers leverage emerging technology for higher economic growth, greater transparency and better governance? Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. I'm Shireen Bhan, and joining me today for this special conversation, Arundhati Bhattacharya, Chairperson and CEO of Salesforce India, Adwaita Nayar, the CEO of Nykaa Fashion, also with us Anchit Nayar, the CEO of Beauty E-commerce at Nykaa, and also with us on the show, Professor Debashis Chatterjee, the Director at IIM Kozhikode. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. So Anchit, let me start by asking you, as you shape the future for Nykaa, which is of course going to be much more digitally linked, how do you position yourself from where you are today? What are the bets that you will make in terms of technology as you imagine the India of 2047?
Yeah, so thanks, Shireen, for having me on this show. I think it's a fantastic initiative from CNBC and IIM. I think it's nice for us to step back and take a look at, where we're heading as a country and where we would like to be in, at the 100-year anniversary of the founding of the nation. So I think to answer your question, what I would say is we are incredibly optimistic about the future for India and all the digitally native startups that have cropped up in the last 5 to 7 years. For me, the major part of the optimism comes from two things. One is the incredible talent. I think the technology talent that we have in this country is unparalleled. There was a time when a lot of this talent was shifting to the developed world for better opportunities, and I think that, in my mind, has changed, and that's what we see at Nykaa. That very strong talent is being nurtured, is homegrown, and is looking to help build future companies that will stand the country in good stead. So that is the thing that gives me most confidence that these tech-enabled startups that have cropped up in the past couple of years will go on to become large players and help to serve the Indian consumer, but also to establish India on the world stage as a leader. And as you said, a disruptor as opposed to companies that are getting disrupted. So that's one. And I think the second thing that gives us a lot of optimism is the sheer consumption story in India. At the end of the day, from what we see at Nykaa, and again, I will say that it is a limited data set of consumers, but from what we see from our consumer base, which is almost 10, 11 million consumers on the platform, we see that there is a strong aspiration in society, and consumers are very aware of what are the best in global trends in our respective verticals. And I think because of all of the improvements in the global economy, and again, leaving the short-term pain that we've seen in the past couple of weeks aside, we strongly continue to believe in the macro story and the consumption story. So I think it's a combination of consumption as well as the incredible tech talent that is choosing to stay local that I think is going to power us for the future.
Adwaita, let me come to you now. Since we are talking about technology and we are talking about the power of innovation, I want to understand from you how significant of a driver that is, especially when you design the back end as far as Nykaa is concerned. And more importantly now, as we look at things like the metaverse as opportunities for the front end, which become a sort of extension of the physical world, and there's this marriage of digital and physical. What are the opportunities that you believe that presents companies like yours for the future?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I think, fundamentally, Nykaa, both our beauty and our fashion business, we're fundamentally playing in what is a traditional space, which is retail. However, we're trying to do it in a more digital, more tech-savvy manner. So we are definitely a company that relies on technology innovation and wants to consider ourselves one of the leaders in technology innovation, because it's just really important for us to do business differently. Within that, I really think there are two fields in which I think Nykaa wants to differentiate and really where a lot of innovation is possible. And the first is, the discovery on the app, right? Because we have so many millions of products. How do we really show the right thing to the right customer at the right time? And I think that's a very big personalization problem that can be solved with great AI and ML and so forth. So I think that's one area of innovation you'll be hearing and seeing a lot, coming from our side. I think the second area of innovation is really on customer experience. I think when you think about a traditional retail experience, really a place where Nykaa can, amp that up is by doing customer experience delivery in a much better manner. So again, I think there's a possibility for a lot of great tech innovation there, whether it's about linking up our physical stores and our online and having the customer have a seamless experience, seamless, fast delivery experience across both, whether it's about having one loyalty program that stitches all our experiences together, whether it's about, again, machine learning to predict a customer's behavior, to ensure that we're giving them the right level of customer service. So both on the discovery and exploration of product, as well in terms of the delivery of product, I think there's a lot of technology innovation that is yet possible. And I think, again, India can be a leader in leading some of this technology innovation in the whole world.
Let me bring Arundhati Bhattacharya into the conversation. Ms. Bhattacharya, let's pull back a little bit and talk about what this could mean as far as the economy at large is concerned going forward. The kind of disruption that we've seen within the financial services space with fintech companies, with what has happened courtesy UPI, I mean, those have been revolutionary changes. Where do you see the next tech revolution from an India perspective in the Indian context as we look ahead?
I think, the next tech revolution that we should see in India will actually be in the legacy organization space. Because if you look at it, if you look at the Digital Awareness Index, and this is a survey that was done by Salesforce itself, you will find India to be one of the top nations where digital awareness is concerned. And even for that matter, people above the age of 70, on account of the pandemic, even they have been skilling themselves with digital skills because it gives them access to markets. Now, this is a segment of population that you would not find doing this same thing world over, but it's happening in India. So people are very digitally conscious. They are empowering themselves. However, if you look at the adoption of some of the things that go towards a digital experience, for instance, adoption of the cloud, if you look at that, India is a laggard in respect of South Asia and Southeast Asia, where cloud adoption is concerned. Now, this is not true for companies like Nykaa and the new companies, the digital companies that have come into being. They are all they are cloud native, they are born in the cloud, they have all accepted that. But if you look at legacy organizations, I think the challenge lies there. And that is where the next tech revolution should happen.
Professor Chatterjee, let me address the larger issue of governance with you now. And we have seen technology play a crucial role, especially through the course, for instance, of the pandemic, in being able to provide governance. As we look at India of 2047, how crucial do you believe it will be for local authorities, of course, for the central and state governments, to use technology to drive citizen programs, citizen benefits, citizen incentives?
So if you look at governance as a huge issue, it's much bigger than a corporate concern. The complexity of governance entails that we look at a very different model from the Western model where you have low volume and high value. Here we are talking about high volume and moderate value, if not exceptional value, and value for money and value for many at the same time. And so the imperative here is to where are those trade-offs going to be possible? How do you, before you fill up the skill gap, how do you map the existing skills? Where is the skull gap? So the point is that how do you map the existing resources? And the whole strategic inflection point for governance would be not the kind of resources that you need to borrow from, but the resources that you already have. How do you look at them and make this the part of your strategic sort of? So India's challenge would be not so much what you might call a technological revolution, it's a cognitive revolution. The ability to accept appropriate technology, symbiotic technology, to solve the kind of problems that only people at the grassroots should know, and to be able to upscale the solutions that they already have and make this commonplace.
Note, we'll take a break, but when we return, we continue our conversation on India at 2047. Welcome back. You're watching India 2047, and we're talking about how India can lead the tech revolution going forward.
India's challenge would be not so much what you might call a technological revolution, it's a cognitive revolution. The ability to accept appropriate technology, symbiotic technology, to solve the kind of problems that only people at the grassroots should know, and to be able to upscale the solutions that they already have and make this commonplace.
Bhattacharya, you know, the experience that you had while at State Bank of India, and of course, this is an area where I think India has led the way in using technology to ensure that there is deeper financial inclusion. Of course, there's still a long distance to cover. But what are the lessons that one can learn from how technology has been used to ensure that we have better penetration, that we bring more people into the banking system, that we ensure that a direct transfer of benefits is done without leakages? In sectors like education, healthcare, you know, what are the lessons to be learned from the fintech experience, from the financial services experience that we can draw on?
The kind of tech stack that has been created in the public space, that is by the government. So whether it be the UID authority, whether it be UPI, whether it be the aggregator platform, whether it be the open rails, now we are talking ONDC, these kinds of tech stacks are not available in any other country across the globe. And this is something that is enormously empowering. And if you ask me, the financial inclusion we were trying for a very long time. Why did we manage to do it now, and what was the real, the differentiating factor that got us to the financial inclusion levels today from what was earlier? And it was all technology. It was basically, the first thing was your ability to do KYC, which is your Aadhaar. So your biometric database enabled us to actually say that Shireen is Shireen and she is not somebody else. And if we can simply, expand to what we have done with finance, that is, with DBT and things like that, the direct benefit transfers, if we can just extend that to the area of education and health, I think, it would be enormously enabling for our nation. And all of those are on the roadmap, by the way.
As we move ahead and we look at the next wave now, what do you believe the imperatives will need to be for tech companies like yours?
If a company is going to be long-term successful in a market like India, the whole imitator model will work for maybe a couple of years. But in the long term, to remain relevant to the Indian consumer, you have to build a business that is tailor-made for the unique challenges that exist in India, right? And we spoke a little bit about the sheer diversity of the country, and both geographically and demographically. And businesses that want to succeed have to modify their businesses. And I think Nykaa is a good example where, there are lots of businesses who do e-commerce globally. But what Nykaa did is Nykaa realized in a country like India, the physical retail aspect is also incredibly important. So today, Nykaa is truly an omni-channel retailer. We have 100 plus medium to large format physical retail stores, and we have a very best-in-class digital app platform as well. And I think we realized that for us to be long-term sustainable and successful in India, we could never be an online-only company. So I think it's decisions like that that businesses will have to take to remain relevant to the Indian consumer. So that's really the thing. And the second thing is, I would say that for us, it's been the government's focus on Build in India, Digital India has allowed for the latest crop of companies coming out of the country to be doing things that are unique and are not just copy-paste models. And I am of the opinion that these companies, if they continue to receive the support and to be nurtured by the broader ecosystem, I think they will go on to become real competitors on the global stage. And I think that's our hope, that Nykaa could potentially be one of those as well.
I was just going to piggyback onto what Anchit was saying. I think, been thinking a lot about this. I think it's a known fact that globally FY21 was a record year for venture capital, across the world, and India for sure, with $42 billion in venture capital, 1,500 deals, a lot more being poured into the country last year and really globally. And I think by many, metrics, there's been a lot of money flowing around. And I think, as we all know, there's a lot of tightening happening. And so I do feel that sort of the era of easy money is a little bit behind us. And so that actually compels startups both in India and abroad to do two things. One is to really, truly add value and innovation into an ecosystem. Yeah. So I think the day and age of sort of Me Too apps or, Me Too businesses that are not really adding any incremental value are sort of over. And then the second and equally important is for startups to build sustainable business models. And I think, again, a lot more focused on things like return on capital, profitability, all of that is going to start coming in. And I think, frankly, this is the right thing for the ecosystem, both in India and abroad, just so that the right allocation of capital happens to businesses that are truly moving, the world forward and really, shifting us in a direction of innovation.
Professor Chatterjee, what do you think the imperatives need to be now? As I said, we've got disaggregated markets, we've got disorganized industries, and we have a large consuming population, and hopefully the consumption power is only going to increase as we move forward. So what do you believe the imperatives will need to be, not just for legacy businesses, but also for the large number of startups that are looking at these opportunities?
So startup culture, it's not just an issue of business, it's an issue of the larger societal acceptance of it and the educational acceptance of it. In effect, when we use the word disruption, we use it in a way that is sort of comes from the competitive frenzy of the corporate world. But if you really understand the word disruption, it means how do I create the connections that were not there before? In fact, all the disruptions that you will see is in between the product or the service and the consumer. And the connections that we make, when connections are deep, there is empathy. When empathy is deep, there is trust. When there is trust, there is business. So the fundamental to, I think, putting India, 1.3 billion people together is to imagine a connected population where there will be high fidelity, high degree of fidelity. And this fidelity will be driven by our values. It is not just a question of skills. Educational enterprise in India must ensure that authenticity, sustainability, fulfillment are values that are driven from the school system onwards. The Indian words for it are Satyam, Nityam, and Purnam. And we understand that these values are perennial and they will have to drive tech, because technology really creates nothing. Technology merely amplifies or simplifies human ingenuity. Now, if the driver of ingenuity itself is an imitator, is somebody who's corrupt, that technology will yield only questionable results, for lack of a better word. Yeah. How do we connect India in a way that these values get amplified and the skills get sort of, decoded in ways that only we can do? I mean, a nation of this magnitude, we can do it.
Yes, we certainly can. So I'm going to give Anchit, Adwaita and Ms. Bhattacharya 10 seconds each. What's the hope or the wish that you have for India 2047? Anchit, let me start by asking you.
So I would say the hope for us is I think it would be incredible for a young country like us on the 100th birth anniversary to be a developed nation and to be servicing our consumers, our population. And I think more from a little closer to home for technology companies like ourselves to really find solutions that help solve problems for the larger populace and helps to carry the population along. See, I think if you look at Nykaa as a small example, already we employ over 3,000 people directly. And we work with 2,000 brand partners who employ another, tens of thousands of people as well. So I think even small startups like ourselves have the ability to create serious employment and consumption in the nation. And I think everyone should do their bit to build businesses that are giving back to society. So I hope to see that really play out nicely by 2047.
Adwaita?
Sure. I think, what would be a dream is if some technologies that we can't even envision today, but are truly mainstay technologies in the lives and homes of people in 2047, if some of those came from India. I think that would be incredible. And, they're just so innovative that we can't even understand what they are today.
Let's hope we do lead the next revolution. Ms. Bhattacharya, your wish or hope for 2047?
Well, my wish would be, that India gets up to its potential. I know that India has huge potential and we have really not, explored that or come up to it. I would want the opportunities to be available to every single Indian to be able to live up to their potential. If that happens by 2047, I think my dreams would have come true.
Professor Chatterjee, the final word to you.
Well, I wish I was qualified for the final word, but this is all I have to say. It's that if the currency of a nation was not a dollar or a rupee or yen, if it was just a human being as the unit of currency of a nation, then I would assume that India would be the richest country in the world in 2047 by virtue of its population, which is not just capable but compassionate citizen of the world. And imagine unleashing 1.5, 1.6 billion people of certain capability, we automatically gain world leadership. And it is not just about being best in the world, it's being best for the world, because we have a global responsibility for the size, nation of our size. Thank you.
Well, that is the perfect conclusion. Not just best in the world, but best for the world as well. That is the aspiration for India at 2047. Professor Chatterjee, Ms. Bhattacharya, Anchit and Adwaita, many thanks for joining us on the CNBC-TV18 special conversation. Appreciate your time and we wish you all the very best of luck. With that, it is time for us to wrap up India at 2047 from the team here. Goodbye. Many thanks for watching.